Matt,
Yes.
Doug
I'll ask
Mayer.
him to start his video. No big deal.
Mad dog.
That's my wife.
There he is.
There it is. And you guys are all set. You're live on everything.
Hey, Doug.
Okay,
Yeah,
Doug, we're
3
just
minutes.
about ready to start right now. Okay, we're live. So let me just say, I hereby call to order the June 11th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Ogunquit. The secretary will now read the roll call, and as your name is read off, respond by saying, Mr. Jones present, or whatever phrase it is, but I need your name and your response.
Jay Smith.
Present.
Doug Mayer.
Mr. Mayor is present.
Peter Griswold is present. Michael Horn.
Present without a pitch.
Jerry DeHart.
Jerry DeHart is here.
Carol Aaron. Carol Aaron, you're on mute.
Carol Aaron is here.
Glenn Delateski.
Glenn is present.
Okay, for the record, we have a full board and our two alternates. And so today, Carol and Glenn will be first and second alternates. They have full permission to discuss any matter, but only the 5 full board members will be allowed to vote. In fact, when we get to the motions that require voting, you'll be requested, each one of you will be requested to state your name and whether you vote for or against a particular motion. One administrative remark, this is the ZBA's first time at using Zoom, so hopefully there will be no lapse in protocol. If there is, I will seek guidance from Mr. Buttrick and anyone else who he refers to. He's the one that set up the meeting and is in the background. Also, I encourage you to please speak clearly into your microphone at home or wherever you are. So also the public will be invited to comment on our case tonight, but only after the board has ruled on whether we have jurisdiction to hear this case at all. So we're going to follow the agenda as published. And first item on the agenda is the approval of our minutes of our meeting of March 12th. And as been our past practice, each member was requested to review and mark up their copy of the minutes that were previously provided to you. So all members of the board, except Mr. Griswold, may participate in the approval process. So, as you know, we go page by page. And so my opening question is, any errors or omissions on page 1 of the minutes of our prior meeting? None appearing, we'll move to page 2. Any errors or omissions on page 2 of the minutes of our prior meeting? None appearing, we'll go to page 3. Any errors or omissions or corrections on page 3 of our minutes of the prior meeting? And lastly, page 4, any errors or omissions or comments regarding page 4 of the minutes of our prior meeting?
Jay, it's Carol. I have a question. Did the land use office get the letter that Ms. Harrington agreed to send at the last meeting?
Funny you should say that. I was going to cover that under new business. I will give you the preliminary answer, and that is yes.
Okay.
So we can make that a matter of the official record right now, that the minutes should reflect that the applicant did turn in the medical form. So we will not discuss that under new business. Is that correct, Mary Ann? Scott and Marianne, you both.
Okay, yep, sorry, I was having a little trouble unmuting.
Okay.
Receive it. Yes, we've got it.
Okay, fine. So do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Let's see, that must be Mike Horn, is that
Right,
correct?
okay, I'll keep the name up.
And who would like to second the motion?
Doug Mayer.
Okay, Doug Mayer has seconded Mike Horn's motion to approve the minutes as presented. One by one, all in favor, say whether or not you're in favor of the motion. So Jerry, you in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Peter, are you in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Carol, are you in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Glenn, are you in favor of the motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, I am.
Mike Horn, are you in favor of the motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, I do.
And Doug Mayer, are you in favor of the motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we have a unanimous vote there to approve the minutes of our prior meeting. Thank you very much. I don't believe there's any old business to be brought before the board at this time, but I will ask you, do you know of any old business? The agenda said there was none, so I'll presume that to be the case. Okay, moving right along into new business. Mr. Secretary, will you read the case into the record?
Yes, the appellant's name is Edward Straub, and he is asking for a variance to move from GB2 to R because his lot is intersected by that differential in the district.
Okay, so let me remind the board, also want to remind the appellant and anyone listening at home that the case will not be presented by the appellant until I so declare it. It's called opening the public portion. So the appellant and the public's ability to participate in our meeting is not allowed until two important questions are posed to my fellow board members. And I'll ask those two questions now. Question number one, does any member of the board have a conflict of interest sufficient to disqualify you from voting? Let me ask each of you to answer with your name and a brief statement saying I do or do not. Jerry, do you have a conflict of interest?
Jerry D. Hart does not.
Okay. Peter Griswold, do you have a conflict of interest?
Peter Griswold does not.
All right. Carol Aaron, do you have a conflict of interest?
Carol Aaron does not.
Okay. Glenn Delatesky, do you have a conflict of interest?
Glenn Delatesky does not.
Mike Horn, do you have a conflict of interest?
Mike Horn does not.
Doug Meyer, do you have a conflict of interest?
Doug Mayer does not.
All right. So let the record reflect that there is no conflict of interest by any board member. The second and important question is, does the board have jurisdiction or standing to hear this case? Or phrased otherwise, is there provisions in the ordinance that authorize the board to hear this particular case? So does the board have jurisdiction? Would anyone like to respond?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mike Horn. According to our ordinance, and I have to just go through this. On 1.3 G, the CEO has to approve this to the ZBA. But then going on page 54, 7.B.A, here's the crux of this situation I'm trying to get to. On the variance appeals, the ZBA may grant variance only, only underlined, from dimensions, trying to read this thing, etc., lot coverage, etc., etc. It does not mention anything about change of zone.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Who is speaking?
Jerry DeHart. If we
Okay.
go back to G, Mike, it says where uncertainty exists as to the exact location of the district boundary, the Board of Appeals shall have the final authority as to the location. So I think really the question is, do we have an uncertainty of the boundary? I would say that is the question for whether we can or cannot hear it.
Mr. Chairman, I don't agree with that whatsoever. I don't see where there's an uncertainty to the boundary. The boundaries are clear. It's just a matter, according to the appellant, that it seems to me that all he wants to do is change the boundary. So we go from business to residential, from business to residential. So there's no uncertainty where that boundary is written, as far as I'm concerned.
Let me interrupt here, Jay Smith. Mike, Mr. DeHart was not saying there is uncertainty. What he was saying was if there is uncertainty, then there is some leeway for the Zoning Board of Appeals to get involved. But to your point, I think it's true that there is no ambiguity, there is no uncertainty. But let me hear from other members of the board.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Griswold.
if you look at 1.4, as in David, on page 6, the last sentence says, the space and bulk regulations of the district shall apply to the land within those districts and are not subject to the 50-foot provision, which is a provision that's earlier in that section D. So I think we have an issue with the setback, and the setback is part of space and bulk regulations. And therefore, I would argue that the zoning board does have authority.
All right. I'll be looking for other opinions here. That section D deals with a zoning district boundary that divides a lot or a parcel. The applicant is asking for a change in the boundary line. This is an informational article that talks about what you can and cannot do, but it doesn't say anything about changing the zoning ordinance boundary line. And there's a differential in thinking there. Other thoughts about whether we have jurisdiction?
Mr. Chair, Doug Mayer.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, as I read the under new business, the request is to change the property zone designation. It
Yeah.
says nothing about ambiguities. It's a request to change the zone designation, which I don't believe we have any authority to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Other thoughts here on whether we have
Hello,
authority?
Jay. Glenn Delatetsky.
Yes, Glenn.
I agree. I question whether we have the authority to do it. The other problem I have with it would be the lot is divided by 2 zones, as we all know. But we would be creating, if we went to residential, we would be creating a property more eastwardly than the property to the west of this one, which will still remain commercial, or GB2, I'm sorry.
All right, so you're inferring that if we change this, there may be other situations that are similar?
Similar, or we're going to end up almost like spot zoning. Right now, we've got the corridor off from Route 1 in that section GB2 on either side, and it's a pretty straight line.
Yes.
But we're going to now start having cutouts in it.
Right. Other thoughts on this particular question of jurisdiction?
Mr. Chairman, just a point
Mr. Horn.
point of information.
Yeah.
I misquoted the section of the code. And I'd like to reiterate that, which is the variance appeal. At 5.2, point B, large B, and point A, small a.
Okay, are you referring to where boards can only grant a variance under specific things?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, it's true. The board, I agree with your interpretation, Mr. Horn, that the board only grants a variance for dimensional requirements related to lot area, lot coverage, frontage, height, and setbacks. That particular Article 5 subparagraph does not allow us to grant a variance to whimsically, if you will, realign the GBD2 setback from Route 1. Is that your point?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Doug Mayer again.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I've looked at other lots in the area, and there are a number of them, both to the north and the south, where the GB residential boundary pretty much bisects a property. So I believe that if we were to hear this case, it would just be opening up a can of worms that would be a number of potential cases in the future in the same vein.
All right, thank you, Doug. I did a similar analysis, and there are actually over 60 lots that fall into a split because of the 250-foot setback from the center line of Route 1. So your point's well taken. Other thoughts about jurisdiction? All right, the appellant has asked for a variance appeal under Article 5, but Article 5 says, as we've already reiterated, boards can only grant a variance for dimensional requirements related to lot area, lot coverage, frontage, height, and setback. There is no provision in Article 5 that allows us to change the district boundary locations. For those that are interested, they can look at, I think it's 1.9 somewhere that talks about how you do get that, and it's certainly not through the Zoning Board of Appeals. That official zoning map is prepared under the direction of the planning board and approved by the town. We cannot override a town established boundary unless there's that one exclusion, and that has to do with this thing called ambiguity. And there is no ambiguity in this case. There is no meandering of the GB2 property line. It's a firm fixed line, set back exact dimensions from the center line. It's not arbitrary, although it could be argued it's capricious, but it's obviously been well established for decades. So I would argue there's no ambiguity or uncertainty. I think the ordinance uses the word uncertainty in 1.3G in Article 1. It's the GBD2 district, as we all have just reiterated, runs parallel to Route 1 and 250 feet back. And Mr. Strobe's property falls into two districts by virtue of that creation of the GBD2, but that's true for at least 60 other lots all the way along Route 1. If any applicant wants to consider a revision to that zoning boundary line, it is not through the ZBA. And 1.9 talks about how to make that happen. Carol Aaron.
I have a question, Jay. In the deed that this gentleman presented, one of the things he said is that in the original deed, it was a 20-foot setback. Does that have any implication in what we're talking about?
No, but what he's asked for is a change in the boundary line of the zone. The deed may have been accurate in 1990 when he bought the property or whenever it was, but those setback rules have actually changed over time.
Okay.
There's other mistakes in the deed too, which is beyond the scope of this discussion. what the applicant's asking for is a change of the GBD2
Right.
line.
So he just included that so we could see it originally was, but what you're saying is that the residential district GB2 were designated after this original deed and really have nothing to do with it.
I think it was about a year later. I'd have to go back and do some
Okay.
historical research. He bought the property, I think, in 1990. GBD2 came into existence in 1991, I think. So this situation that he's lived under has been in existence for 20, 30 years. So
Mr. Chair,
unfortunately, when zoning lines are changed, individual property owners sometimes get adversely impacted. That's happened before. Other
Mr. Chair?
comments? Mr. DeHart.
can we make a motion to not, that we do not have the authority to make this change because it is not of an uncertainty?
I would like to entertain a motion to that effect. I was just checking my working notes here, make sure everything's been done in due order. So the motion that I will accept is a motion not to hear.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. DeHart that we not hear this case. I need a second.
Second, Peter Griswold.
Mr. Griswold has seconded. Let's go name by name as to whether or not you're in favor. And so I'll go around the room. Obviously, Jerry made the motion, so he would be in favor. Is that true, Mr. DeHart?
Yes.
Peter Griswold, you seconded, so I assume you're in favor, but for the record, could you state your position?
Yes.
Okay, we're voting on whether we are going to hear this case, and the motion on the floor is not to hear. Carol Aaron, what is your position?
I can't vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I thank you for pointing that out. That's very important nuance there.
Can I ask a question though?
We're in the middle of the
No,
vote.
okay.
Okay, Mike Horn, what's your position in motion? Move not to hear or to hear?
Move not to hear it.
All right, Mr. Meyer, move to hear or not to hear?
I move not to hear.
And Jay Smith moves not to hear. So at this point, the motion not to hear is passed unanimously. And so I thank you for your discussion in this. The response to the appellant will be made by the Code Enforcement Office. So the public session in essence was not opened. There was no need to open it.
Can I interrupt for just a moment?
Yeah.
Can you give me the basis for that decision and reference the ordinance articles that you base it on? So I can put it in the decision.
Okay. Article, don't go away.
1.3G.
I'm going to start with 1.5. Excuse me, 5.2B1. I think that's it. 5.2B1, which allows us to only grant a variance for dimensional requirements. And I think that's really the key one. The secondary one.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, before we go, I have it 5.2.BA, not 1. I don't know, maybe I'm incorrect.
I'll double check that. 5.2B1 subparagraph A. Technically, it's 5.2.B.1.A.
Okay.
Okay. And then a parallel one for those, and this is similar to a case we heard previously, and that would be 1.3G. And our position on that is that there is no ambiguity or uncertainty. And those are really the two deciding ones. There's no need to do 1.9, which gives it an avenue to revisit this by the appellant. we're not here to advise the appellant on how to file his case. So I think those are the two I would stick with. Does anyone else have other articles or sections of the zoning ordinance they would like to see cited? Okay, Marianne, are you okay with that? Okay, so I wanted to remind the appellant and the people that may be listening in from the public that we're not rude. We voted not to hear this case. There's no need to open it since we have no jurisdiction. And so I'm sorry to say we will not be hearing your case today. But we do have other items on the agenda. So let's, now that we move not to hear, I'd like to ask the code enforcement officer, he's next on the agenda. Do you have any business you'd like to share with the board?
No, none at this time.
Okay. Are there any other items to come before the board at this time?
Can I jump in for 1 second?
Yes, I have one item while you're digging out, or you all set to talk?
I am, and this may be what you were going to bring up, but I just want to remind a few board members that your terms are up as of the end of June. If you do want to, apply for reappointment, which we hope that you will, you need to see the town clerk or go on the website and pick up the paperwork and submit it to the town clerk as soon as you possibly can. She'd like to get the positions all straightened out by the end of July, which is when the terms are officially, well, halfway through July, done.
Okay, and for your information, the people whose terms expire in 2020, besides myself, include Jerry DeHart, Carol Aaron, and Glenn Galateski.
I have submitted already,
Thank you very much.
some time back.
All right. I was waiting for the office to open up.
I submitted some time back too.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. So any other items to come before the board? All right, so do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Don't move, Mike Horn.
Mike Horn moved to adjourn and seconded by
Peter
Peter
Griswold.
Griswold. Believe it or not, I think I'm supposed to go name by name. Is that true, Marianne? Okay, so Jerry, are you in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Yes.
All right, Peter, you in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Carol, Aaron, are you in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Glenn Delateski, are you in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Mike Horn, are you in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Doug Meyer, are you in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Yes, I am, and I'll say goodbye to everyone.
All right, it looks like we're all in favor, so to consider the motion adjourned. This is my gavel, hear it? Okay, meeting adjourned. Matt, thank you very much for your help.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Mr. Chairman. I thought you did a prime job.
All right, thank you. Scott, get back to work.
You did a great